U.S. President Donald Trump has extended the Iran ceasefire deadline by 1 day to Wednesday evening U.S. time or Thursday morning in Korea, but signaled the truce is unlikely to be prolonged further. With the U.S. delegation preparing to head to Islamabad for peace talks, Iran has yet to confirm its participation, as Pakistan tightens security ahead of the potential negotiations. South Korea's stock market staged a sharp rebound on Tuesday, hitting a fresh record high on optimism over U.S. Iran peace talks and a renewed tech rally. U.S. President Donald Trump has extended the ceasefire deadline with Iran by 24 hours. While he says that Tehran is expected to return to negotiations, analysts are split, with some calling it a strategic move and others pointing to signs of pressure on Washington. Our Jung Hae-rim walks us through.
President Donald Trump has pushed the ceasefire deadline with Iran to Wednesday evening Washington time after earlier expectations it would expire Tuesday, leading to some international confusion over the timeline. Some experts view that the U.S. administration interpreted the two-week time frame flexibly to allow more time for negotiations. As the new deadline nears, Vice President J.D. Vance and a delegation of U.S. officials are expected to head to Islamabad for a potential second round of talks. However, Trump gave conflicting statements on Vance's departure time, claiming he had already left before later clarifying he would depart on Tuesday. Amidst this uncertainty, Tehran continues to publicly deny plans to resume talks.
Rather than just giving Iran more time, it appears the U.S. is the party in a hurry. President Trump is very determined to reach a deal and effectively end this conflict. This extension likely reflects Washington's own urgency to secure a diplomatic victory.
Some diplomatic observers argue that this confused extension of the deadline is actually calculated diplomatic action. They contend that by moving the deadline, U.S. is providing Iran's leadership with a vital off-ramp, allowing Tehran to frame a potential agreement as a sovereign choice rather than a surrender under immediate threat. From Washington's perspective, the extension represents a final opportunity for a diplomatic breakthrough before the midterm elections. Trump has also emphasized that a further extension is, quote, highly unlikely, which means the ceasefire is now set to expire at 8 p.m. Wednesday. A historic peace deal or a return to a military confrontation now rests on the high-stakes meetings in Islamabad. Jung Hae-rim, Arirang News.
In the meantime, though, the Iranian side has yet to give a clear indication of whether it'll attend the peace talks ahead of the ceasefire expiration. Our Park Chun-han has the latest.
Diplomatic efforts are intensifying to resolve the ongoing Middle East conflict and ease tensions on global energy markets. Against this backdrop, with the clock ticking toward the newly set deadline of Wednesday evening U.S. Eastern Standard Time, Iran has still not given any clear signs of taking part in peace talks with the United States and Pakistan. This comes after Iran's parliament speaker and head of its negotiating team, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, claimed on Tuesday that Tehran does not accept negotiations under the shadow of threats, casting doubt on the planned second round of peace talks. In addition, it follows Iran's foreign ministry calling on Sunday for the release of an Iranian cargo vessel seized by the U.S. Navy. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said continued U.S. ceasefire violations remain a major barrier to moving forward with diplomacy. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian underscored the deep mistrust between Tehran and Washington, warning that meaningful dialogue depends on honoring commitments. In a social media post on Monday, he said Iran remains wary of what he described as contradictory signals from U.S. officials, adding that Iranians would not yield to pressure as the talks approach. However, the Iranian president earlier this month signaled in an open letter that he is open to swiftly pursuing a diplomatic resolution, stressing that the outcome will shape the future for generations to come. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
Though the prospects for peace talks remain uncertain, Islamabad is ramping up preparations to host U.S. Iran negotiations, with heightened security measures that have even led to closure of key sites, including a major mosque. Kim So-young has more.
As a second round of U.S. Iran peace talks appears increasingly likely, Pakistan is stepping up security across Islamabad. On Sunday afternoon local time, barbed wire had been set up along the road leading to Faisal Mosque in Islamabad. An English sign reading Police Check Post stood in the middle of a 3-lane road. The Faisal Mosque is the largest in Pakistan. More than just a religious site, it is widely seen as a symbol of Pakistan's national identity. And it is rarely closed. Residents say this is the first time they have seen it shut down, except during major protests. Pakistanis said they never expected that even the mosque would be closed. They also said checkpoints had been set up along the road leading to Islamabad, while vans carrying groups of people were being stopped. Until last weekend, security restrictions were largely limited to Islamabad Red Zone, where major government buildings are located. But now, barricades have also reappeared along the main route linking Islamabad International Airport and the Red Zone. Armed Special Forces officers carrying machine guns were seen deployed along the road. With Pakistan introducing heavy security measures, many here believe a second round of talks between Washington and Tehran could be imminent. Even while accepting inconvenience, many Pakistanis say they support their government's effort to help broker peace.
It is a matter of great joy for us Pakistanis that efforts are being made in our country for world peace. Our government, our army chief, and our entire leadership have come together for this cause.
Pakistan's efforts are increasing day by day, and we are seeing that Pakistan is ready for talks with the U.S., but Iran cannot fully trust these talks. That is why we are seeing that the leadership of Pakistan is trying to build complete trust with Iran.
Still, while reports say the U.S. negotiators are expected to depart for Pakistan, Iran has not yet confirmed whether it will attend. That has left Pakistan scrambling to secure talks before the ceasefire deadline. Kim So-young, Arirang News.
And Korea's benchmark KOSPI surged past the 6,350 mark to a fresh record high on Tuesday, fueled by optimism ahead of a potential second round of Middle East peace talks. Cha Young-young tells us more.
The South Korean stock market shows strong momentum on Tuesday as investor optimism over potential diplomatic breakthroughs outweighed geopolitical risks in the Middle East. Despite the lingering tension between the U.S. and Iran over the Strait of Hormuz, the market appears to be betting on the success of upcoming negotiations. Earlier this month, South Korea's benchmark KOSPI plunged sharply following the outbreak of conflict between the United States and Iran on April 13th, triggering concerns over escalating geopolitical risks. As of April 21st, the index opened 1.34% higher from the previous session and surpassed 6,355 within about 10 minutes. That took the index above its previous intraday high of 6,347.41, set on February 27th before the start of the U.S. Iran war. Furthermore, KOSPI hit a new historic high on the same day, breaking above the 6,380 mark, reaching its peak at 6,388.47, gaining 169.38 points or 2.72%. Large caps led the gains with Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix up around 2% and 4% respectively when the new record was set. Samsung Electronics reclaimed the psychological 220,000 won milestone, roughly $150 for the first time since late February. Large-cap semiconductor stocks show strength on expectations of strong earnings from SK Hynix, driving the index higher. In the meantime, the Korean won rose against the U.S. dollar. In the Seoul foreign exchange market, the $1 exchange rate began trading at 1,472.41 and closed at 1,468.5, lost 8.71. Still, experts caution that market volatility could persist, depending on how geopolitical developments unfold. Cha Young-young, Arirang News.
And President Lee has departed for Vietnam for his state visit after concluding his trip to India, where he focused on strengthening economic ties between Seoul and New Delhi. Our top office correspondent Song Yujin has this report.
President Lee Jae-myung, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and Samsung Electronics Chairman Lee Jae-yong all in one frame. The selfie taken with the Galaxy Z Flip 7 made at Samsung's Noida factory in India has drawn attention as a snapshot of the growing economic partnership between South Korea and India. A business delegation of around 200 people accompanied President Lee's state visit to India. The strong focus on business even reshaped diplomatic protocol.
The original plan was to hold the Korea-India Business Dialogue ahead of the Korea-India Business Forum. But Prime Minister Modi proposed that business leaders join his lunch with President Lee, and we accepted.
According to the policy chief, talks focused on broadening cooperation beyond traditional sectors such as automobiles and electronics into other industries like shipbuilding and steel. President Lee reinforced that message later in the day at the Korea-India Business Forum.
세계적 수준인 인도의 인공지능 소프트웨어 역량과 한국의 반도체, 배터리, 자동차 조선 등 제조 경쟁력이 결합되면 양국은 막대한 시너지를 낼 수 있을 것입니다.
Calling for a step up in economic cooperation between Seoul and New Delhi, Lee reiterated the goal of doubling bilateral trade to $50 billion a year by 2030. Annual trade between the two countries has hovered around $25 billion in recent years, a level the president said falls short given India's emergence as one of the world's largest economies. To that end, the two countries plan to resume the 12th round of negotiations next month to upgrade their comprehensive economic partnership agreement, aiming to reach a deal by the first half of 2027.
Addressing several non-tariff barriers, making it easier to do business between the two countries, easing the rules of origin, expanding market access, and opening up the doors in both countries.
A total of 20 memorandums of understanding were signed between businesses from the two countries at Monday's forum. One of the key deals involves HD Korea Shipbuilding and Offshore Engineering developing a new shipyard in India. 송유진, Arirang News.
South Korea is also poised to expand screen production with India. Culture Minister Choi Hee-young met with heavyweights in India's film industry in New Delhi on Tuesday local time on the sidelines of President Lee Jae-myung's state visit. The meeting included a signing ceremony for a joint film project tentatively titled Amour, which is scheduled to start shooting in September. This latest screen venture builds on the success of a recent Korea-India production titled Made in Korea, which topped Netflix's global non-English charts last month. Korea has been responding in various measures to the ongoing situation in the Middle East. Though the ruling and main opposition parties maintain their rhetoric, lawmakers show consensus in supporting the public through the prolonged difficulties. For more on this, we have our political correspondent, An Sung-jin. Welcome back, Sung-jin.
Thanks for having me.
So, Sung-jin, you sat down with the floor leaders of the Foreign Affairs Committee at the National Assembly. Now, what did they have to say in responding to the Middle East crisis?
Right, so let's first break it through by sector, starting with the economy. Nearly 2 months into the ongoing crisis in the Middle East, the ripple effects are being felt far beyond the region. Now in Korea, the prolonged instability has begun to impact particularly the economy and a wide range of industries. One key priority emphasized by both sides is mitigating the economic shock. Alongside stabilizing crude oil supply chains, there has been a strong push to broaden import channels and over the long term, accelerate Korea's transition toward inevitable renewable energy.
So when we combine those policy measures, in addition to the diversification and the energy safe measures, all in all, we can kind of survive this period of difficulties, and then we can shoot it back to the normal economic situation.
Support for the energy sector has also been reinforced through the supplementary budget. Measures are aimed not only at small business owners and the self-employed, but also at industries directly affected by the crisis, including transportation and naphtha-based sectors.
Broader livelihood support is also intended to help stimulate domestic consumption. But in the long term, as an export-focused nation, we are a highly energy-dependent economy, so we eventually have to accelerate the transition to renewable energy and the transformation into an electricity-driven nation. I believe that structuring legislation and policy is absolutely necessary.
Right, then, besides the economy, Sang-jin, are there other aspects that the lawmakers discussed?
Right, so on the diplomatic front, both lawmakers have underscored the importance of multilateral engagement. The Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee has maintained ongoing communication with Gulf states, including meetings with their ambassadors, while also continuing dialogue with both Iran and Israel.
Our greatest strength is maintaining good relations and leveraging these strengths to ensure that our diplomatic capabilities secure the safety of our expatriates, trade, and most importantly, national interests.
But they also stressed that the cornerstone of South Korea's response remains its alliance with the United States.
So even though under President Trump, we must try to strengthen our alliance with the United States. At the same time, we must try to have more flexibility or more strategic flexibility in preparation for a new world.
Then, with all this in mind, what does the National Assembly intend to do in the near future, Sang-jin?
Right, so despite the evolving and uncertain future we have with the Middle East crisis, the National Assembly says it will continue to closely monitor its impact on livelihoods and prepare responsive measures in step with changing conditions. Have a listen to what both of the lawmakers had to say about this.
Even after this supplementary budget, if necessary, I think we need to actively consider providing support for people's livelihoods to sectors heavily affected by high energy dependency, such as the transportation industry and the self-employed.
My thought is very clear, that everybody loses when there is military this magnitude of military conflict, because this affects everyone. So I'm pretty certain that all the countries will try to help the two countries to come to an end of the military conflict as early as possible.
Well, it does seem like lawmakers themselves have to keep an eye on how the Middle East situation is unfolding. Sang-jin, thanks for coming in tonight.
My pleasure as always, Tommy.
South Korea is set to begin providing money from its high oil price damage relief fund from April 27th to be correct. According to a Ministry of the Interior and Safety meeting on Tuesday, vulnerable groups, including low-income households and single-parent families, will be prioritized for the relief funding from April 27th to May 8th. And the second phase, covering 70% of eligible recipients, which is about 35.8 million people, is scheduled to begin on May 18th and run through July 3rd. Emphasizing the urgency, Prime Minister Kim Min-seok said speed is of the essence from the war-related supplementary budget. Kim urged the local authorities to expedite the execution of 20 major projects, including the relief funding, to provide timely assistance to the public. Korea's new central bank chief has taken office today, pledging a flexible monetary policy while confronting currency weakness and inflation challenges, despite controversy over his appointment. Our Kim Do-young covers his remarks.
Newly appointed Bank of Korea Governor Shin Hyun-sung took office on Tuesday, inheriting a domestic economy challenged by a struggling currency, persistent inflation, and geopolitical headwinds.
While it is an immense honor to have the opportunity to dedicate myself to the Bank of Korea and our economy, after working in overseas academia and international organizations for a long time, considering the duties entrusted to me, I feel a heavy sense of responsibility.
Acknowledging his heavy responsibility, Shin outlined his core objectives for his 4-year term. He stressed the need for flexible monetary policy and the need to expand financial monitoring into non-bank sectors, using market price indicators as an early warning system against systematic risks. He also emphasized the need for internationalization of the Korean won, confirming plans to establish a 24-hour foreign exchange market and offshore settlement systems. To secure a stable, next-generation payment infrastructure, the central bank will push forward with digital currency initiatives.
Through the second phase of Project Hangang, we will increase the utilization of CBDC and deposit tokens and elevate the status of the won in the digital payment environment through international cooperation, such as the Agora project.
Governor Shin steps into the central bank's top post at a critical juncture. The Korean won remains weak, currently trading in the 1,471 range against the U.S. dollar. The central bank also remains in a complex policy dilemma, having frozen its base interest rate for a 7th consecutive session to balance inflationary pressures from the Middle East conflict against a sluggish domestic economy. Earning his doctoral degree in economics from the University of Oxford, Shin brings an extensive international resume to the role. He previously served as an economics professor at Princeton University and spent 12 years at the Bank for International Settlements. As for his rocky confirmation process clouded by allegations regarding his daughter's passport and criticisms of his extensive time abroad, Shin spoke to the press after his inauguration speech and apologized for any concerns caused, asking to ultimately be evaluated by his results. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, on security front, Seoul says there has been no impact on military readiness, despite a partial U.S. restriction on some intelligence sharing over North Korea. Our Oh Soo-young has the details.
Seoul says core monitoring of North Korea remains unchanged, despite the United States partially restricting intelligence sharing. A South Korean military official told Yonhap News Agency on Tuesday that restriction has been in place since early this month, involving some satellite-collected data on North Korean technologies. The official stressed the move does not affect military readiness, with South Korea and the US continuing to share key intelligence on North Korean military activities, including missile launchers. The restriction follows remarks by Unification Minister Chung Dong-young in early March, when he referred to Kusong in North Pyongan province as a possible location of a uranium enrichment facility alongside previously known sites. Washington is believed to have protested, saying sensitive intelligence it had shared was disclosed without prior consultation and has reportedly asked Seoul to take steps to prevent a recurrence. Concerns had been raised that the move could weaken South Korea's reliance on US intelligence, particularly as North Korea has stepped up provocations since its 9th Party Congress earlier this year. But the military says the restricted information is not critical and that joint monitoring remains intact. They point to North Korea's missile launch on Sunday, when it fired multiple ballistic missiles from the Sinpo area. South Korea and the US had already detected unusual activity in advance and were closely monitoring the area, including the possibility of a submarine-launched ballistic missile or SLBM. Officials add that multiple examples of North Korean submarine movements have recently been identified near Sinpo, raising the assessment that an SLBM launch could be imminent. Meanwhile, the Unification Minister has defended his remarks, saying they were part of a policy explanation and reiterating that the Kusong facility is based on open-source information. He expressed concern over speculation of a crisis in Korea-US relations and said he hopes the issue will be resolved through communication between the allies. President Lee Jae-myung has also rejected claims of a leak, saying the reference to a Kusong facility was already publicly known through academic papers and media reports, calling the allegations unfounded. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Tomorrow, we're expecting to see 20 to 60 millimeters of rain on Jeju Island, while the Jeollanam-do and Gyeongsang-nam-do provinces will also have some showers. Meanwhile, dust from the Gobi Deserts and Inner Mongolia is really hurting air quality right now. This dust is likely to stick around through tomorrow, so you want to take some precautions. Make sure to wear a mask and try to avoid going outside as much as possible. Because of the lingering dust, air quality will remain poor across the country. Fine dust levels could briefly spike to very bad in Busan, Ulsan, and Gyeongsang-Namdo province tomorrow morning. Also, a dry weather advisory is still in effect, mainly for Gangwon-do province and the northern part of Gyeongsang-Buk-do province. As for temperatures, Seoul will start the day at 10 degrees Celsius, Daejeon at 8 degrees, Busan at 12 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 19 degrees, Gwangju at 18 degrees, and Daegu at 20 degrees. Looking ahead, rain will start tomorrow morning and in some places could linger into Thursday. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.